The goal of education is not to increase the amount of knowledge, but to create the possibilities for a child to invent and discover, to create men who are capable of doing new things, by Jean Piaget. A very good afternoon to the panel of speakers and teachers. Welcome to our webinar on creative pedagogies for online teaching and learning. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Vanita from ELTC and I'm the moderator today. Today's webinar will look at two aspects. First will be issues and challenges in online teaching and learning. We'll have a sharing session from 3 teachers on the present scenario in schools, and then we will discuss strategies for online teaching and learning. I'm sure that everyone is waiting anxiously to learn new approaches, new strategies, and free online tools. Those are the 2 objectives for today's webinar. Let me move on to introduce our panel of speakers for today. With us this afternoon, we have Professor Dr. Apta Darshan Singh from Innovative Digital Learning, Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, APU, and Associate Professor Dr. Dorothy DeWitt from the Faculty of Education, University Malaya. Thank you, Prof, for being here today. Thank you, Dr. Dorothy. We are also very privileged to have with us Puan Rahmah B. binti Muhammad Kabibal Saibu, a preschool master trainer from SK Minden Heights, Gelugor, Penang. Puan Amira Shazana binti Amiruddin, an English language teacher from ST Bandar Sri Sendayan Negeri Sembilan, and Encik Hassanul Abidin bin Yusuf, the GKMP from SMK Taman Selayang, Selangor. I would also like to take this opportunity to introduce and thank the academic lecturers of the Department of Assessment and Evaluation, ELTC, Puan Hardip Kaur Darshan Singh, Puan Munira binti Hariri, Puan Nurliana binti Ismail, and Puan Nur Izni binti Muhammad Hassan, who have helped in making this webinar successful. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in schools being closed all across the world. Children are out of the classrooms. As a result, education has changed dramatically. With the distinctive rise of e-learning, whereby teaching is undertaken remotely and on digital platforms. This is the current scenario in this country today, in our country. The way we teach and learn needs to reflect and meet the changing requirements of contemporary contemporary times. Digital technology has taken the center stage in the way educational process is transacted at homes. It has made education far more flexible, accessible, and personal, a renewed excitement in the process of learning. Many believe that there is a need for a new hybrid model for learning. Ladies and gentlemen, to discuss, we will first look at the scenario at our schools, preschool and from primary and secondary schools. Today's webinar allows us to get into the classrooms and into the lives of our school teachers with a hope to understand the current scenario being experienced by both teachers and learners. It is important that we understand exactly what is happening, And what are the challenges in the English language teaching and learning settings today? Let us begin by looking at the current situation in the preschool classrooms. Can I invite Puan Rahma to share her views? Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to Madam Moderator, all panels and viewers around the country. Thank you ELTC and Dr. Vanita for giving me this opportunity to be part of this webinar. Okay, online teaching and learning experience is a mixture of excitement, worry and apprehension. Teachers, parents and pupils are in a dilemma as online teaching seems to be a new avenue that everyone is venturing into. In preschool setting, the pupils require guidance and monitoring from adults at home during the online classes. But in reality, Dr. Vanita, parents with many school-going children find it difficult to cater for their children's virtual learning needs. Some pupils are unable to join the online classes as they are with their babysitters or maybe caregivers while parents are at work. Disturbances and distractions from the pupils' younger siblings during the online classes make things worse and make delivery of lessons less effective. Nevertheless, a study done by Caritas and Tanser in the year 2020 showed that schooling of all stages has had to adapt learning, teaching and assessment practices to quickly changing circumstances. Okay, despite the challenges faced, preschool teachers nationwide are trying their level best to take the challenge positively. This can be seen through the sharing of teaching and learning materials digitally via social media. Preschool teachers, I can say, are trying or in actual fact struggling to learn to produce their own English language teaching and learning materials to help preschoolers learn the new way using Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zepito, Flipgrid, Filmora, and many other applications to name a few. All right, lots of support groups are created to help and guide preschool teachers produce their own teaching materials using digital tools for English language. Okay, let's take a look at the challenges teachers face while teaching online. As for the challenges, Dr. Vanita, like I mentioned earlier, online teaching and learning is really challenging. In order to find out the challenges faced by the teachers in my district, I conducted a small-scale survey to collect the responses from the teachers. I'm lucky to have 100 teachers participated in this survey, which was conducted online. The findings are quite interesting, I can say, Dr. V. Okay, 41% of the respondents said that they were unable to see their pupils' reactions during the online classes. 22% of the teachers said that connectivity was one of the problems, while another 20% said that pupils tend to get distracted easily with their surroundings. For example, cats playing around them. Okay, this I personally experienced during one of my Google Meet session with my preschoolers when the cats actually wandering to and fro in front of the camera. Next will be siblings disturbing or even the sounds of friends yawning. Another 10% of the respondents found that teaching online demands more time to explain and teach, while another 5% said that they were not confident teaching in English because of their inadequate English proficiency. Last but not least, 2% of the respondents said that teachers had to talk too much in order to make the pupils understand the content delivered. These are some of the challenges I found in the survey. So in the context of preschool education, it is a real challenge, Dr. V, to engage
Mhm.
with children via online. They need
Yes.
a lot of attention and this is difficult. Over to you.
Thank you, Puan Rahma. As we know, preschool children come to school to experience social world, and now it's a different thing. And it's not easy to engage them online. And like you said, they get distracted even by a cat passing by. The cat is more interesting, exciting for them. Yeah, so that's how preschool children are. So, do you think it's the same in the primary school setting? One Amira, can you share with us?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Vanita. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all the panels and viewers. It is indeed a pleasure to be in this webinar. We can view the situation today in two different perspectives. Firstly, prior to COVID-19 pandemic, the English language teachers can teach the students face-to-face, give them worksheets, and are able to guide them on one-to-one, physically, mentally, and emotionally. However, teaching English online during this time is totally different. Yes, you are face to face with your student. And yes, you can give them worksheets online. It all seems the same, right? However, that's not what it looks like. Firstly, the phrase face to face seems unreal. Yes, if
Mm.
the teacher does online teaching through Google Meet, they do have the online face-to-face sessions, but it's not the same. We cannot teach the same way we teach in the classroom, and they cannot learn the same way they learn in the classroom. That is the scenario that we are facing right now. Besides, the time duration taken to teach is also different during pandemic. We're usually given 1 hour to teach English, but now during online class, only 1/3 of the time is fully utilized to teach the students. 2/3 of the time is spent on setting up the students, making sure they can join the online class, giving instructions, and so on. But on the bright side, what this pandemic has taught me and other teachers is to learn to accept changes and make adjustment, even though we are so not ready for it yet. We need to find new ways to teach the students. The students are learning, and at the same time, the teachers are learning, and at the same time, they are teaching their students. What I can see from Facebook, especially as most of my friends are teachers, is the sharing of videos on how to teach English language using different platforms and approaches. Some teachers even go way beyond to record tutorials on how to use the platform and ways to teach English language. I agree with Puan Rahma. Teachers are more creative on how to teach online using YouTube, Canva, and Google Meet. Besides, the teacher also need to choose, create, and give worksheets using the medium that is accessible to all and also enrich their learning experience, Dr. V.
Okay. I like what you said. I think you summed up the scenario in simply one sentence. We cannot teach the same way we teach in the classroom, and they cannot learn the same way they learn in the classroom. So that's the set scenario like in during this pandemic, teaching and learning online. And I think one of the main issue that you're talking about here, just like what Panorama
Yeah.
has shared, is engagement, getting engagement during teaching. Yeah. So, are there any challenges, any
Yeah.
other challenges that you face in the primary school? Yeah. Puan Amira.
As for the challenges, as the challenges, there are a few. Of course, there are a few. The first one is teaching language. By far, it is the most challenging issue that I'm dealing with. For me, teaching grammar in an integrated manner needs to be taught face to face, and it needs to be in a two-way communication. It's because one of the ways I will know whether they understand my explanation is by looking at their responses, their body language, as well as the additional questions asked to check on their understanding. If they don't understand it the first time, I can ask them which of the parts that they don't understand. Then I can reteach them by focusing on that part that confuses them. However, that is not the case when you're teaching online. Yes, maybe I can record a video of me teaching and explaining the topic, or I can give a link from YouTube, or even conduct a Google Meet session for our lessons. But what happens after they have watched the video recording? What if they don't understand it? What if they can't understand a part of the explanation? So meanwhile, from my point of view as a teacher, I may not be able to see my students' reaction as clearly as in a face-to-face classroom to see if they can understand what I am saying and whether they are participating in the learning experiences. Okay. The second challenge is not getting the responses that I had hoped for. Some of the students choose not to complete my work, but they choose to complete worksheets from other subjects. I'm able to identify this problem because usually students have to learn 2 subjects per day according to the schedule planned by the school. Normally, at the end of the lesson, they have to write their names once they have completed the work given by the teachers. However, I've noticed that the students who could complete the work given on other subjects couldn't complete mine, although these 2 subjects were on the same day. So this is a problem for me because I'm having a hard time assessing my teaching, whether they understand or not, as well to assess my students to do classroom assessment. The third challenge is their writing and handwriting skills. I've noticed that my students' handwriting has deteriorated over time. Lack of practice plus having to answer most of the questions online without having to use a pencil really takes a toll on their handwriting. Besides, their writing on short essays or even answering comprehension questions also have become a problem to me. Because I think writing needs ongoing guidance from the teachers, especially for the younger students. But when we're teaching online, there's no ongoing guidance as our time is limited. Yes, we can give them instruction to answer these comprehension questions and write these short essays, but the process is what matters the most. It is where they will learn and absorb on what to do and what not in a sentence. So these are the challenges that I've encountered, Dr. V.
Oh, thank you, Puan Amira. I think basically you talked about 3 main challenges. Two-way communication is a problem because you cannot have that face-to-face interaction with your learners. And then you also talked about getting responses from your learners. You don't know whether they understand what you are teaching. So that's another challenge that you are facing. And thirdly, you mentioned about the mechanics of writing. You fear that the art of handwriting is going off, and you also worry about the writing process. Perhaps Amira, there are ways to solve the issues. But before that, you think it's the same scenario in the secondary school? Let's listen to Encik Hassanul. Encik Hassanul, what's the scenario like in secondary school? And what are the challenges?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all. Thank you, Dr. Vanita. It is an honor to be in this webinar with all the beautiful roses here. Generally, sorry, I see similar setting in the secondary schools. I agree with Puan Rahmah and Puan Amira. Teachers need to find ways to manage a lot of things. For example, to resume the teaching and learning, to choose the type of exercises assigned to students, and what kind of evaluation based on formative and summative assessments. Teaching is somewhat one-way teaching, okay? One-way teaching or one-way communication, because teachers do not know whether the student on the other side are listening, or maybe just log in the session, or maybe do some of the things. Okay, we never know. This is because the students hesitate to turn on the camera. When the teacher asks a question or just a simple question, for example, like, guys, are you still there? Sometimes there's hardly any answers. And this is what I meant by one-way communication, and I fear that the language gap may widen due to students not getting the opportunities to apply the language as they did in the classroom, where the teachers would force or encourage them to use the language in any way they can. The pandemic has also brought positive changes into the secondary school. Puan Amira has mentioned the same thing. Teachers are more creative. They are now actively using digital tools in their teaching, and Google Classroom is the way now. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many challenges when it comes to online teaching. As mentioned by Puan Rahmah and Puan Amira just now, I would like to add some, which are students' attitude or readiness to learn online, the gadget they own, data package, internet coverage, and also parental support. At home, teachers need parents to monitor their children even at secondary school level. The online games around them, such as PUBG, Fortnite, Among Us, and many more, have greater excitement than online learning. They tend to stay up all night just to play the online games and then sleep all day after staying up late. We are very lucky to have parents who strictly monitor their children even when they are at their workplace, and their children wouldn't dare to do other things except attend all the online lessons. Limited data package and internet coverage also play a vital role in this scenario. This happens to both parties, teachers and students. Data package and internet coverage would hamper the teaching and learning if there is limitation on either. This is experienced by all teachers, even in Gombak, Selangor, where the students and teachers sometimes are disconnected in the midst of the online class session. When this happens, both teachers and students would feel frustrated because what they have planned cannot be followed, and teaching and learning would not be as good as they wanted. Moreover, to change from learning in class to learning online is quite challenging. For teachers and students. Teachers are not used to teaching online while just sitting on the chair. They would prefer to move around the class, see students up close, attending students who need help during the lesson, and sometimes play games in the class. And now, everyone sits in front of either mobile phone, tablet, iPad, laptop or desktop, and having teaching and learning like what we are doing now. Right, Dr. V?
Yeah.
And I would say old habits die hard. Another challenge would be in submitting the assignments. We can see that good students with self-motivated attitude would be very active in settling all the assignments assigned to them, okay, regardless of which class they are from. They turn in or submit the assignments within within the given time. However, for some students, they don't even bother to do anything unless after the teachers have sent them reminders through the parents. That's all from me. Thank you, Dr. Vanita.
Thank you, Hassano. That's very interesting to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell, there are many challenges out there in our schools, be it primary, be it preschool, be it a secondary school classroom. But what's interesting here that we can note from the panel is that, there are similar issues actually. We can see that there's a lack of presence, learners' presence in the platform. There's lack of engagement between the teacher and the learner. There's lack of physical movement. There's that the running around the classroom, the games, language games that we can do during face-to-face interaction is also missing. Okay, and these things are challenging enough. Yes, it hampers the learning process, the teaching and learning process. But I think we need to address these challenges. There's no way of saying that we're going back to face-to-face and ignore online teaching and learning. This is the new way that we need to embrace. And having heard these challenges, I think it is necessary for us to see what kind of support these teachers need. For that, I would like to invite Rahma from the preschool setting, preschool classroom, to share with us or to give us some kind of understanding on the kind of support that preschool teachers need. Yes, Puan Rahma.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vanita. From the sharing by Puan Amira and Encik Hassano just now, I can see that there are similarities between the three levels of schooling in our country when online teaching and learning is concerned. And it goes without saying that the better the quality you go for, the more professional impression you create on your pupils and their parents. Okay. Hence, to support preschool children in the context of virtual lesson, preschool teachers need strong support to teach English online. From the survey that I had conducted, 58% of the teachers stated they need support in terms of teaching modules and teaching materials comprising audio, video, game quizzes, online links of interesting learning activities and fun learning activities that can be provided to them, and also English language teaching modules for them to use as guidelines in online teaching. This will possibly ease the burden they are facing. 14% were looking forward to join workshops and trainings for teachers on how to conduct online English language lessons. 16% of the respondents felt that parents' involvement, commitment, and cooperation in supporting their children during this challenging time is important too. 11% of them felt that high speed of internet access and ICT infrastructure were crucial to make the online teaching session successful. Lastly, Doctor, 1% of the respondents felt that sign language was badly needed as it was very challenging and not easy to teach pupils with disabilities virtually, especially teaching English language lessons. Okay, I think that is part of the supports that are needed by preschool teachers, Dr. Vanita.
Thank you, Puan Rahma, for sharing that with us. I think one important point you made is that there's a need for training modules and online and teaching training for teaching assistants. I just would like to share here that as a training institution, English Language Teaching Center is actually looking into uh, providing training for teachers on online using online materials. So if you log on to our website, okay, you log on to our website and see there are many courses available for teachers. So please explore.
That is good news. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is good news, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So now, Puan Amira, what kind of support will you need
Yes.
for a primary school teacher?
I think the most important support is from our fellow English teachers, as they can support each other professionally. English teachers with the skills and knowledge on how to conduct online classes need to share this with other teachers, as some of us might have some problems to even start doing it. Actually, there's already a lot of sharing, discussions, and tutorials done by the English teachers. Sometimes they even share videos, worksheets, and even websites that might help other teachers. I think support from our fellow teachers is crucial, as teaching virtually is a lot more difficult and need a lot more work and effort than actually teaching in class, especially to senior teachers. Besides, support from other English teachers is important, as only we ourselves understand the difficulties of teaching new language to small kids who need a lot of new interesting ways of learning. This kind of support would definitely help the teachers to continue delivering an enriching learning experience to our students. The second support is from the parents. It is also important for us to have their support, as they are the bridge or connectors between us and the students. Without them, no matter how good a video that you have recorded, how instructive a sheet that you have created online, if their parents don't show to their kids, all of your hard work will become pointless. Besides, parents need to support their kids and us, the teachers, by providing the necessary facilities for online learning, such as a desktop or a laptop or even a handphone, as well as basic internet connection. Without these essential items, teaching and learning will not happen. Yes, maybe you can give them modules or hard copy of exercises, but how about the instructions? How about the explanations on how to do it? How about the teaching itself? That's why parents need to provide their kids with the items that I mentioned earlier. As my clients are primary school students, they are still in need of guidance and assistance to navigate their learning. So this is the role of the parents, to guide their kids according to the teacher's instructions so that learning can take place. The third and foremost important support is from the Ministry of Education. Teachers need to have proper online training, ICT skills, how to adapt different teaching contexts and content, as well as pedagogic knowledge in online learning. Yes, I know teachers self-learn and self-explore on these aspects, but it would be so much better for us to receive a systematic, pedagogically sound and high-quality training for online teaching. Teachers need to be provided with ample support in terms of training, materials, and time resources. So I think this is the kind of support primary school teachers need, Dr. V.
Thank you, Puan Amira. So Puan Amira is saying that there's a need to have support from fellow teachers, Okay, teachers are supposedly sharing their practices, and you as yourself has seen that, experienced that in your Facebook. Yeah. So I think this is a good practice. You should
Yeah.
continue. You also mentioned that the role of parents are important. Parents should support both their children and the teachers in this new way of teaching and learning. And
Yes.
also, thirdly, you spoke about Ministry of Education. You also said similar thing that Puan Rahma has shared, that you need to have more pedagogical training for online teaching and learning. Is it the same with you, Inche Hassanul?
Yes.
Over to you for the secondary school.
Thank you again, Dr. Vanita. Okay, for secondary school, to support the teachers of schools in general, some necessary support is needed for online teaching and learning. Firstly, unlimited data package with strong coverage for the students by any service provider, I think is very much needed. The government can have a MOU with any service provider that can make this a reality. This would help the students and teachers to resume and enhance the online learning greatly. Secondly, parental support is of the utmost importance. They are the pillars of the family and the ones who shape their children. Some students do not listen to the teachers, but listen to their parents' commands. Therefore, parental support that can work hand in hand with teachers would be very much appreciated. Thirdly, time to ensure the students are guided strongly during the pandemic in online learning. Teachers need a lot of time since one session of online learning for 1 hour can only cover one or two activities compared to learning in class. And lastly is the moral support. Students need this from everyone, especially the 2020 and 2021 SPM students. It is difficult to equip the student with all the knowledge and skill during the pandemic just by online learning. Therefore, the schools and teachers need to morally support the students to motivate them in their studies. This is from me, Dr. V. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Hassanul. Hassanul is saying that there's a need for unlimited data package.
Yes.
He's also suggesting that there's an MOU between the ministry and the provider. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And Hassanul is also saying there's a need for parental support, just like what Amira has shared. Parents play an important role in this new way of teaching and learning. He also talked about the time factor. Yeah, we need to consider our time allocation for our teaching and learning to ensure that there is effective teaching and learning taking place online. And finally, he also said something very interesting about moral support. It's a new way, it's a matter of changing attitude, and I think as teachers, we need to give moral support to our learners. So I agree very much with you, Hassanul. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome, Doctor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have heard three panels, three teachers talking about issues and challenges teaching online, and they've also highlighted the kind of support that they need. Now, to continue the webinar today, we are indeed privileged to have two senior lecturers with us to discuss three important things that can be very helpful for all teachers listening to this webinar. All right? They'll be discussing some effective online pedagogies. some best practices for teaching English online successfully, and very interestingly, they will be sharing some interesting tools to support teachers in the language classrooms. To begin with, let me invite Professor Dr. Aptar Darshan Singh.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Vanita. I'd like to firstly thank all the three teachers, that is Puan Rahma, Encik Hassanul, and Puan Amira, on the well-informed challenges faced by our teachers, as well as the recommended solutions given by them. Very great indeed. I also take this opportunity to thank the directors and staff of ELTC and the BSTP, as well as the MOE, for the opportunity given to Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation to share our experiences in creative online pedagogies for teaching and learning. This topic by itself says a lot about ELTC's focus on teaching and learning and the efforts to upskill English language teachers' online pedagogical skills. My presentation today will start with an overview of key principles of pedagogical design for online teaching and learning, followed by providing some responses to the questions you had posed, Dr. Vanita. Your first question, Dr. V, the most important is, what are some of the effective online pedagogies for our teachers? Now, in any teaching and learning environment, pedagogical effectiveness can only be achieved if the learning design of the environment is well thought out. It is important that the key principles of designing learning be kept very close to our hearts. So, let me take our audience through these principles. Now, the first and most important key principle is stating achievable, measurable, and appropriate learning outcomes for a period of instruction. Now, this is followed by aligning the outcomes with the correct content, the techniques, and the activities and assessment to ensure learning is successful in an online environment. Now, the second most important principle is to select a pedagogical or learning or instructional model that is appropriate to the Ministry of Education's philosophy, appropriate to the technology that is available, so that we suit to our local needs. Okay? Now, a quick and simplistic model is the Gagné's 9 events of instruction. To summarize, the 9 events are pre-learning processes, the first 3 as you can see in the diagram here. And then the actual learning process, this is the most important, the actual learning process, which are the next 5 processes, and the post-learning processes, which is process number 9. Now, the model can be a good reference for teachers to suit to any mode of teaching, and you need not necessarily use all the 9 events all the time. So you suit it to the learning event that you are constructing for online learning. Now, in online learning, it is important to motivate our students. You know, the fact that they are away from you, you can't see them, right? They cannot see you, you can't see them. So motivation plays a very important role. So here the ACTS motivational model can be used to do that. And this includes using various strategies which are time tested, okay, such as here the A. The A is to gain the attention of students, okay? So we use different methods to gain students' attention. And then the R is to make the content relevant to the students' context and background. So depending on who are your students, you make it the content relevant to them. Now the C is very important again for online learners to provide confidence. So you can compliment your students when they post something online, you know, make sure you look at what they are posting and then you compliment them. Okay? And the S, of course, you know, is the total satisfaction the students gain from you in an online environment. So that, you know, if they are spending an hour with you, they want to go out from that 1 hour being very satisfied with your teaching. So you need to use all these different techniques and strategies. Okay? Now the details of how to interpret the ACTS model are given here in this diagram. and you can refer to it anytime when you are free. Okay. Now, another important aspect or principle for online learning is the recency theory. Okay. So it is important to keep in mind for online learning that the attention span of students is further reduced due to other challenges, as you have heard from our 3 teachers. Yeah, they have given you the data also, on what are the challenges. So you keep that in mind. Okay. Now, to capitalize on the recency theory, okay, which says the students remember information which is given in the most recent period. So it's best to focus on smaller learning outcomes. Maybe in an hour of instruction, you can have 1 or 2 learning outcomes to achieve. Okay, so you may start a lesson and end a lesson between 15 to 20 minutes, so that information the students can record and they can remember and they can get engaged with you. Okay. So this is really important, because we don't want our sessions to end up like this cartoon here. Look at this, where the teacher may think that every taught lesson ends up in learning. So we need to start the lesson, teach it, and then let students do an activity and evaluate learning to ensure students have learned. Okay? It is important to ensure that we check on the cognitive overload of the learning process. Make sure that you don't talk too much, so that you give time for the students to reflect and to do activities, so that they are not overloaded with content in that time. So to do this, you can chunk the knowledge so that they will assist learners with guidance and allow for the necessary breaks in the lessons to prevent this cognitive overload. Okay? Generally, the rule of thumb, right, is to have 5 ± 2 bits of information at any given time. So that's why chunking is very important. You need to help our students with mnemonics, okay, acronyms, and such things, to know or to understand better. Now, one other important online principle is the 5 P's of voice. Okay, so it is important that your voice, right, is number 1, well paced. That is the first P. Okay, and then it is well pronounced. Okay, and then it is the pitch is not too high or too low. Okay, and the power is there. You must speak with a clear voice so that in an online environment the students can understand what you are saying. And of course, the 5th one, is our professional voice, So prevent yourself from using the la and the mas in the English language classes. Okay? So once all these learning design matters are in order, it is appropriate to discuss the best practices.
Yes. Thank you, Prof. At this point of time, it's interesting to see how you say that it is important to plan a lesson. So I think what's important here for us to know is that lesson planning, as in the face-to-face classroom, has to be thought of how you want to do it when you're going online. And for that, you are suggesting that you need to have principles to follow. You need to have some kind of model. That you spoke about the ARC model, the motivational model, and you also talked about the recency model, where when you go online, there's only so much that you can teach, and there's only so much that you can learn. So you need to have strategies like chunking, and you've also showed the 5 P's, which is very interesting, and I think teachers will now look into these aspects. Now, would you like to share some best practices, Prof?
Yes, sure, Dr. Vanita. Before we move on to the best practices, right, we need to also slowly incorporate a blend of online teaching and learning that is blending the synchronous and asynchronous learning. Okay, I wonder how many teachers are practicing this. Can we see a show of hands? Okay, looks like quite a number of teachers are doing this. So it's good to know. And I'm sure the teachers who are using a blend of synchronous and asynchronous lesson, right, know that these are some of the advantages of asynchronous lesson. Number one, there will be more collaboration among students. Okay. Number two, there is more deep thinking and higher order thinking among our students, because when you do asynchronous, you can allow them time to think, more time. And then you can enhance the creativity of the students, okay? And various different creative pedagogical techniques can be used. And also we can have inclusive learning incorporated into our lessons, yeah? So I hope all of us will start thinking of having a blend of synchronous and asynchronous learning. Okay, let's now move on to some best practices for online teaching and learning. So we shall start with role playing. You know, role playing can be done in a normal physical classroom. It can also be done in an online classroom, okay? Now, so role playing is a good online pedagogical method for practicing language communication skills, okay, whereby students can role play with peers. And they can just use a mobile gadget or a WhatsApp video, you know, combine those two, and you can get a good role play done. How do you do it? Okay. So the following are some steps which combines scenario and peer learning. So for this role playing, I'm suggesting build a scenario and then involve peers in the role playing. Okay. Now, so teachers can start by creating a scenario and rubrics. Don't forget, you need to create the rubrics so that the students know what they need to do and how they will be tested. Okay. Now, as a peer learning process, students can be taught how to use those rubrics to check if the communication skills of the role-playing exercises were successful. And then, as a teacher, you can do a follow-up. You know, you can post a video, okay, into the learning system about the correct communication skills to allow students to check and learn the necessary language communication proficiencies. Yeah. Now, another creative online pedagogical technique is storytelling. See, and there are tools that we can use. Yeah, for example, we can use the Google Tour Creator, or we call it the GTC, which is a virtual learning software. Have a look at this video. Thank you.
I was born and raised here in Lancaster.
It is definitely a big farming community.
You see family farms everywhere you go.
And I think it's really cool that we have this opportunity to share like our way of life.
How we're going to do this is using a new tool called Tour Creator.
It's an interactive, easy-to-use tool that allows our students to create rich 360-degree experiences.
You will see the photos that the Ag Department and the Art Department have supplied.
Add a title and description, click on that, and then it'll bring up the street view. We can plug that into the actual tour.
It will definitely inspire me to show more of Lancaster, and hopefully it'll inspire people to do the same.
And it's wonderful that we can have our students interacting with all of these other student stories across the globe.
This is Chicago's Little Village neighborhood.
It's very close living quarters, very different from around here.
We were just looking at the one from Bali. Their classes are basically outside.
I really thought that that was neat. Everybody's different on the way they like living.
And every place has a unique story.
Did you like the video? I'm sure you enjoyed it, and you learned quite a number of ways of how to use the Google Tour Creator. So we are going to see how we can do a story. Okay, so storytelling, right, can be done in many various ways to test numerous English language descriptors. Yeah, particularly, I'm going to share how we can enhance creativity and imagination using a storytelling method for English language using the Google Tour Creator. Now, start by uploading the GTC and sourcing free video resources that can be shared with students on how to create an easy virtual reality story. Now, a relevant example in the COVID-19 circumstance is to create a story of a trip. So many of us can't go for a trip, right? So now we share a virtual trip and create a story with it by using your photographs. Okay. Now, in the example shown here, which was created by my PhD student in Dubai, that is Dr. Atra Al-Awani. I like to thank her. It starts with the pedagogical aspects, that is the learning design of the lesson. Now you can see in this picture here, right, how we have to create first the learning design of the lesson. Then it is important to create the virtual tour scenario where, as a teacher, you create a template that can be used as an example by your students. You need to assist your students, right? So you create the template for them. And then create the storytelling activities which will provide further assistance to your students. And this will increase their confidence to use the Google Tour Creator. And then they will create their own stories in the English language. Okay. Now, to further enhance creativity, as a teacher, you can provide students with, for example, here you can see a boarding pass and an exit pass, okay, which was created by Dr. Atra in her storytelling template when she was teaching the English language to her students. Then after that, you provide the storytelling challenge for your students to do likewise using the Google Tour Creator. I hope this will encourage you to start using the Google Tour Creator. Look at the video again and then look at these templates to help you create the storytelling process.
Oh, thank you very much, Prof. That's really an interesting idea. Using the Google Tour Creator to do storytelling in the language classroom. We all know that storytelling is a very powerful strategy to learn the 4 skills in English language. And through ELTC, actually, this app, students get to collaborate and produce their own voices creatively. And I think that's marvelous. Yeah, I hope teachers will go into this and try this GTC on their own. Okay, Prof, we would really appreciate if you could share with us some online tools for teachers to explore, and possibly if it is free.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Dr. Vanita, again. And that was a great summary you did, and I'm glad to hear your voice in this as well. Firstly, I'd like to emphasize that mobile phones can be great tools, and they can be used for high engagement between the teacher and the student. Okay? For example, you're just using a mobile, right? There are so many softwares that can allow students to drag and drop, to do tagging, to do brainstorming, to make personal connections, record their voices with annotations, yeah? To access QR codes for interactivity and also have access to literary tools. So I think it is important that, we try to use the mobile as much as possible in the learning process. Yeah? Now, 2 applications that can engage students through mobiles are, number 1, the Mentimeter. Okay. Now, what is a Mentimeter? Let's go into it. A Mentimeter can be used for different activities such as surveys, quizzes, and brainstorming. I find brainstorming an interesting feature of the Mentimeter. Now, how to use it? Okay. So, for example, a very simple way is just to ask a question as you normally ask in the normal classroom. Okay. To engage the learners. Okay. For example, here, what are 3 words that come to mind when you think of online learning? So when you put the question out, right, you can see that the responses will come and they will show you on your Mentimeter. So here is an example of what are the responses. They are future, technology, and awesome. So then based on these answers provided by your students through their mobiles using the Mentimeter app, right, the categorization of the responses is immediate. You don't have to go and, start categorizing it anymore. That is done for you already. So in this manner, we could see that the extra time afforded to you by the technology, right, you can use now to do more higher order thinking activities with the students. So I think that is a great power in the technology for us to use. Yeah. So in the English language classroom, you can use, the Mentimeter to brainstorm different ideas with your students. Okay, because it helps with efficiency of time. At the same time, it highly engages your students, because online engagement with students is a big issue nowadays. Yeah. Now, another application that we can use highly with mobiles is called Zittings. Okay, as we all know, a great lesson is more than a bunch of slides. Yeah, you can create PowerPoint slides, but they won't become very interactive if you don't build in the appropriate technology. Okay, so now we want to build a genuine connection with each and every student. Yeah, understanding what makes them tick and allowing the conversation to continue even when the class is over. Okay, so Zitting empowers our students to get actively involved in our online lessons. Okay, so again, you might ask, how do we use Zittings? Okay, now so to use Zittings, you need to click on this site, that is www.zittings.com, and then you sign in. Okay, you need to register. Now, as an educator, this is why it's so good for us to be educators, right? We get a lot of free software. So Zittings is one free software we can use, okay? And there's no app to download, okay? You just install the software and then you will create a new presentation, okay? And then you collect new Zittings to make your home screen. You can make it as a home screen, as you can see in this diagram here. So once you have created your new Zitting, okay, you can go on to select Add Content. You add content to start building your presentation. Yeah. Now the first thing you see is the option to upload your PowerPoint. So select an existing PowerPoint that you already have and upload it into the Zittings software, so that you don't spend more time with the Zitting software. Okay. Now the next thing you want to do, which is very important, is to add some interactivity. So select Add Content and then choose one interactivity there. There are many interactivities, but I suggest you start with the simplest, that is to create a poll. Okay. And then when you click on the poll, you will be given 6 different interactive formats. Okay, these include thumbs up or down, multiple choice questions, building a scale, building ranks, using text method input, or using the cloud method. So when presenting with Zittings, students can actively involve, so that the first step is to get them connected. So when you create your Zittings account, please create a presentation URL, okay, known as your channel, so that you can share with your students. So you share the channel with the students first. So normally you can use either your name or your school name to create this link. So for here you can see one created by the Asia Pacific University Digital Learning Hub lead, Mr. Jonathan, which he called zittings.com, and then backstroke he put his name at the back. So you can do that. Now if you are using Zittings and if you need to connect to somebody, Mr. Jonathan said that you could connect to him and he will respond to your questions. Yeah. So his email is given here, jonathanj@staffemail.apu.edu.my. But don't worry, you can connect to me first, and then I can connect you to Mr. Jonathan. Okay. So one of the most important aspects of Zittings, right, is that you can really understand how your students are interacting, how they are thinking, whether they are interacting or not. Because Zitting is a data-driven analytics software. As you all know, analytics is really very important for us teachers nowadays, so that we can immediately find out which students are with us, which students are not with us. So, in an online environment, we need to know that, because we can't see them, right? So we need to know whether they are actively participating with us or not. Now, Zittings allow us to do that. They give us the analytics, so you can quickly pick out on those students who are not active in the online environment. Okay. Now, lastly, I like to share that to support teachers, Asia Pacific University and Open Learning has a ready-made course for all teachers who can learn on their own to upskill their online pedagogies creatively. Okay, it's called Be a Future Ready Educator Now, or we call it Be Friend for short. So please click on this link that is given to you. It's free and you can explore the online pedagogies and the tools. Okay. Now, looks like I'm coming up to the end of my presentation, so I like to sum up. Now, creative online pedagogies need an interplay of three main elements. The people, the technologies, and the content. And this needs planning. So the more you plan, the more confident you are, the more exciting your classroom, the more happier your students, and the more intelligent they become. Okay. So, and I think upskilling is important, and in this respect, I like to say bravo to ELTC for doing the needful to upskill teachers' pedagogical skills using online technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Apta. That's indeed a very good presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, in relation to what was shared by the teachers at the beginning of the webinar, when we talked about issues and challenges, many were saying that it's the issue of engaging learners in the lessons. So with what Prof. Apta has shared now, with the Mentimeter, Z-Things, I think these are important online tools that we can explore to get our learners engaged in the lessons. So thank you again, Prof. Apta. And she is kind enough to share with us a link for us to learn pedagogical courses from APU. So please, ladies and gentlemen, explore this link further. Now, let's move on to Dr. Dorothy. Greetings, Doctor, and thank you for being with us today. What are your views on some effective online pedagogies, best practices, and if you can share with us some interesting tools, online tools, for us to make our teaching and learning online more effective?
Thank you, Dr. Vanita. First, I'd like to congratulate all the teachers who have made the effort to go immediately online when the lockdowns and the movement control orders were first implemented. The teachers have done a great job. They've implemented many creative ways of teaching, employed many apps in their teaching and learning, and not only Google Classroom, but many teachers went on to be social influencers with their own YouTube channels, Facebook channels, with large number of followers. Okay, so congratulations to all the teachers, including the teachers here, okay, who are listening in as well. Okay, and I also like to congratulate the Ministry of Education for providing the platforms for teachers to go online with the Lima D-Date TV, among others, and specifically to ELTC for looking at creative pedagogies for online learning. Congrats to all of you. Okay. It must have been a very stressful situation for teachers. In higher education, we lecturers were also having a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties coping with online lectures. We struggled to ensure our classes, our online classes, were effective as the normal classes. And we had to spend more time preparing for the classes. And at the same time, we'd have technical difficulties such as audio quality, video quality. Sometimes the mic was off, sometimes the mic was not working, and so on. And another aspect was getting students engaged. How do we know what students are thinking and doing when all we see is only the black screen? So it was very difficult. Even parents were complaining of the technology overload. Each child needs a device for their online class. So a family with 5 children, for example, may be using 1 laptop, 2 tablets, and another 2 mobile phones. And all of these devices are sharing the same internet bandwidth in the home. So ensuring that their children had sufficient internet access was also a problem for the parents. So, however, we managed to solve these problems, and many have adapted to the new normal. And I don't think we'll be going back to what was totally the same as before. After all the teachers here have acquired so much technical skills, and you're so advanced in technology usage now. Okay. At the Reimagine Education Conference in December, which I attended online, Maria Spice, the co-CEO of Holland IQ, shared some data which she collected from lecturers and administrators of higher education institutions in several countries. So when they were asked, would education go back to usual when the pandemic ended? Okay, the answer was actually no. From countries such as Australia, China, Israel, France, Great Britain, and America, a very large number disagreed that we'll go back to usual. So education will not be as usual. Okay? And when asked whether the robotic revolution would be influencing higher education, see, 38% in Australia said it would, 45% in China believed it would. And I believe it's the same for schools. This is going to be the new normal, Dr. V. Okay, we have gone on to online teaching, and we may not be going back totally to the traditional way of teaching. So technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence will be prevalent in our lives today. Okay, so this means that we will have to consider improving our online teaching and having more creative pedagogies.
I agree with you, Prof. and Dr. Dorothy. There's no going back to traditional way of teaching and learning. And I think this is reality, and we have to see what next can be done so that, we sail through and survive this new change.
Yes.
Dr. Dorothy, what are some approaches that we can take for effective online pedagogies?
So I would suggest two approaches. Firstly, interactive learning with lots of activities, both synchronous and asynchronous activities. And secondly, collaborative learning with production-based tasks where learners need to produce their own content. And let me elaborate on this. So for interactive learning, students need to be actively doing things and not just listening to the teacher. One of the problems that teachers have is how can we engage our students? So our students love to go outdoors. Actually, they would love to play games, even online games. But now in this pandemic, we don't do much of that. So when they are not interested, they easily get distracted. So how can we engage our students? For a video conferencing session on Google Meet, we can't expect our students to be on Google Meet listening to the teacher for 30 minutes at a stretch. So there needs to be lots of activities, lots of changes in pace of learning. So activities can be dialogues, letting them talk, okay? Can be debates, let students debate on a topic. Can be writing on online apps. Can be giving an assignment to create or design a poster or do a video, create a video and share it online. Or even suggesting solutions to problems that are posed. Okay, so all of this can be done both synchronously with the teacher, online, or asynchronously. They can do it at a later time and present it or even post it on the Google Meet, okay, later on. So these interactions are not only meant for intellectual development, okay, it also helps with social and emotional development. So students who are, interested, okay, they will have fun, and that develops the social and emotional feelings for the lesson. So Make it fun. Use gamification such as Kahoot, okay, quizzes that you can engage with the students. Another effective online pedagogy, which I use a lot, is collaborative learning. Collaborative learning is a process where a group of learners actually work together towards a common goal. Okay, so when they solve problems, when they complete tasks, they are actually building new knowledge as a result of their interactions in their groups. So students can be working in groups physically or even online. Okay, you can do it online. There are many apps which can enable working online, okay, for collaborative learning, where students can share and produce content in groups. So one of the apps that I use for sharing content is Padlet. Learners can post sticky notes with images and text such as what you see here, okay, and this is a virtual wall, okay, and they can share, things that they have created or collected with their classmates.
So, Dr. Dorothy, you are saying, you are suggesting two approaches. One is the interactive learning with lots of activities for them to engage. And the next one is the collaborative learning, focusing on students' production. So,
yes.
Based on your experience, Dr. Dorothy, what are some best practices to teach English online successfully?
Okay, yes, Dr. Vanita. Let me share a few best practices. So I've compiled this through the years, okay, and some of the things that I hope can engage the learner, okay, using online learning and interactive learning. Okay, when students are interacting online, most of the time they are engaged if they are interacting, but we want to engage our students so that they have the right behavior for learning. So behavioral engagement, okay, whether they are on time, they are there in the learning environment. We want to engage our students and we hope to have emotional engagement among the students with the right emotions, interests, enjoying learning, okay, and this would ensure, this emotional engagement will ensure that they have cognitive engagement, that they are ready to learn, okay, when they participate in the learning. So conducting a debate, for example, on Padlet, I did this in my IT class, actually not English class, okay, but it went on very well. Students had to contribute ideas. They had to rebut their peers, their classmates' ideas and produce arguments, present it in a way convincing, okay, to both parties. Okay? And this can be very engaging for the student. Okay? Or you could have a walk in a virtual world, okay, like in this picture here, when I brought my class to a virtual world on Mozilla Hub. This was at the beginning, the first MCO, when class activities were very boring actually. So I thought that I wanted to bring them for a field trip. Okay, we're all cooped up in our houses, in our homes. So I brought my class to a virtual world and you can see them interacting there in their avatars before I managed to get their attention and conduct the lecture that I was supposed to conduct. Okay, so these are some of the ways that you can engage them first, and then you can deliver the content, can set out activities that you need to present or tell them to do. So what is most important in teaching English online is not the technology, it's the pedagogy. So having an interactive learning environment and collaborative learning practices can enhance the learning. Another good practice that I have, which is also echoed, I'm echoing Prof. Apta, is on chunking. Okay, displaying small segments of content or text at a time. So this involves a lot of planning as you decide as a teacher, which content should I deliver first? Which activity should I do first? second, then next, and so on. So we normally sequence activities from easy to more difficult, okay? Or it could be a sequence or task that you need to do to solve a final problem. So I like to use Nearpod. This is a free app that teachers can try and use to create segments or chunking in your activities, and it's very interactive. Okay, if you go to nearpod.com, you can create a teacher account for free, and all you need to do is give your students the code to access the lesson on Nearpod. And let me show you how simple it is to create an interactive lesson on Nearpod. When you go to nearpod.com, all you need to do is to drag content. Content can be uploaded, such as videos, PowerPoint slides, web page content, even an audio. And don't forget to also add not only content, but activities. So you have the activities on the right. Okay, you have activities such as quizzes, polls, matching pairs, and many other activities, right? When you have added in the content, step by step, you are sequencing it, okay, and putting in the interactivity with the activities, okay? You're actually chunking, so remember small content, chunks, small chunks. Then you have an option when it's completed to run a live session with all your students synchronously, as if you were in the classroom. And when you go to class, when we go back to our normal in the classroom, you can still use this, okay, synchronously in the class. Or you can assign student paces. So there's an option to do a student pace activity where you can do it at their own time. Let's do a very short activity on Nearpod on the topic blended learning. I prepared this actually for a training that I did last week, okay, and it's still active now. So teachers, everyone here, okay, who's listening in, go to your browser. Okay, I use Google Chrome on my mobile phone. Okay, you could go to your browser and type in join. So it's written there on the slide, join.nearpod.com. Or you could go to nearpod.com/student. You could, if you're not using your mobile phone, if you want your students to use the computer, you could ask them to open a new tab on the computer browser, okay? And type join.nearpod.com or nearpod.com/student. So I'm using my mobile phone, yeah, you can see here. Okay. Once you have the login page, enter the code JFHKS, and you'll be able to see the lesson that you're prepared, that I have prepared. Okay, don't worry, it's not difficult. It's only 2 questions. Make sure when you say welcome to your lesson, put in your name so that I know who you are. Okay, or if you don't want to know who you are, you can put a pseudonym, doesn't matter. Okay, all right. And if you'd like to put your school, we could also find out from where you are. Okay, fill in and join the lesson. And I've only got 2 questions there. They are easy questions, don't worry. And you don't have to worry if you're right or wrong. Okay? But I have put a time limit for completion. So you must complete this by the end of March. If you're viewing this after 30th March, I'm sorry, it will not be an active lesson. Okay? But what happens is that the student-paced activity, you can let the students do it at their own time. I did this activity with teachers at a college, okay, last week, I told you, and I generated the reports from the activity that I did with them. So it's all very nicely analyzed, data analytics, beautifully analyzed with lots of colors, as you can see here in this slide. So this activity that I did on blended learning is very short, just 2 questions. So it was done as a pre-instructional activity before the actual training. you can adapt to your class lessons. Okay, if you are teaching, so I've shown you one here on TPAC, okay, how you put interactivity and so on. But if you are teaching on your class lesson, let's say you're teaching about animals, okay, in a primary school, okay, you might be showing pictures of the animals. You might include the pictures, and you might put in some questions. Okay, it can be, for example, does this animal have 4 legs? Okay, so let them answer yes, no, okay, or it could be how many legs. Okay, for example, if it's a cat, you could put a picture of a cat and ask, what is the hair on the cat's face called? Okay, I hope they know that it's whiskers. Okay, our children, all right, so I mean, things like that. So that can be a question, and the different types of questions that you could use, multiple choice, open-ended, even true, false, or it can be even a poll. So put in interactivity, and I find Nearpod is a very easy to use tool that, you know, uses just drag and drop that you can put interactivity in. Okay, and I like to use it a lot.
Okay, Dr. Dorothy,
yes.
Interestingly that you have shared with us these interactive learning platforms. You mentioned Padlet, and then you also spoke like what Prof. Apta mentioned on the chunking strategy. And you also said that it's important to ensure presence in virtual class by giving feedback and comments. Now, at this point, Doctor, is it possible for you to share with us quickly some of the online tools that we can use in the classroom?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Actually, on this note, I also like to remind everyone that do not display too much content at a time, because that again may cause the learner to switch off as he experiences, as Prof. Apta says, a high cognitive load. So we must always remember to give content in small chunks. That's right. And if you have a video, so many of us use video and even video conferencing. Okay, it's sometimes impossible to give a short video. According to theory, we can only listen 5 minutes, you know, Dr. V. Okay, so our video, I'm wondering whether our teachers are listening to us, but I'm sure they're all very, very, very much engaged with the actual session, because many of our students, I'm sure the teachers would have noticed, after 5 minutes, we have lost their attention. Okay, they can't pay attention for too long. So what we must do is like what you are doing, the task of a moderator, asking us questions, you know, having pauses, changing our pace. So that's a very good way of having video conferencing session, okay, having lots of pauses. Okay, so that's something great. But I'm going to introduce one of the tools also. Thank you for asking. Okay, Edpuzzle, okay, is a tool that you can actually use to add in interaction in YouTube videos. So it can be any YouTube video. All right, for example, the example here that I put is biomagnification with the amoeba sisters. So there are pauses for interaction, for changes in pace that you can organize, which you see as the dots in the planning section. Okay, this tool, Edpuzzle, provides you the capability of putting pauses, questions, even sometimes just a summary, like what you have been doing, Dr. Vanita. Okay, the summary of what has been going on in the video. So that actually helps the students to focus, and it also is a very interesting way to put in interactions in the video. So it's a free tool, and it works with any YouTube video. Oh, do remember to get a teacher account. Okay, like Prof. Apta says, there's so many tools that you can use as an educator free of charge. Another actually good practice which I also stress on is to ensure that there is a sense of presence. Make sure the students know that you are there, even though the activity may be asynchronous. Okay, make sure they know that you are looking at them as you have assigned them the activity. Okay, give encouragement. Keep on asking questions. I love Microsoft Teams and of course WhatsApp and many of the social media tools that we can use for teaching English especially. So we can give emojis, okay, such as what you see here. Even on Padlet, there's a lot of likes, reactions that you can do. You can rate with stars, okay, comments, which you can personalize to the student. And next, when you're assigning tasks and problems to solve, make sure that these problems are meaningful problems that relate to their prior knowledge, what they know. Okay, so things like how is the COVID situation right now? How do you maintain social distancing in the classroom when you go back to school? Okay, you know, in our class, right? Or maybe things like football that they are interested in. So how has football changed since COVID-19? Okay, since the pandemic struck. Okay, so get them to discuss, to solve problems. How can we have football in our education, physical education classes now that we are supposed to socially distance? Also get them to create things like resumes, designing a dinner menu, or even producing a video so that they can give information. So, Dr. V, I use Padlet a lot. Do you think that it's okay? And Nearport?
You are the expert here, and I think whatever you are suggesting is of great use for all the teachers. So you've mentioned quite a bit of online tools. If are there any other tools that you would like to share with us to support teachers in the language classroom? If you could just name a few. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. V. I'm going to suggest a few of my favorite tools which I use in my teaching and training. First, I love quizzes. Okay, so I love to challenge the students, and these quizzes can be used for comprehension questions, sentence construction, okay, and anything that you like to even sometimes just get their attention. Nearport, which I have used, is a very useful tool to plan, but I use a lot of Kahoot. I don't know whether teachers know that Kahoot, since the pandemic, they have changed to include a Kahoot challenge, which is a self-paced asynchronous activity similar to the student-paced Nearport that I mentioned. You can assign the quiz and the students can do it at their own pace. There are other quiz applications which I use, which are less noisy than, compared to Kahoot. So Creative is free with the option for teacher pace or student pace feedback alternatives when the quiz is launched. And I also use Quizzes, Quizlet, and of course, Google quizzes. I use that quite a lot, actually. Using Google Forms, you can create a Google quiz. For socialization and interactions, I use Padlet, okay, because there's a lot of ways of displaying the communications, either on columns, okay, or free flow, right? I use it for socializations, for students to introduce themselves, get to know them better. I also use the features, the interactions, stars, likes, comments, okay, to enable interactions. Microsoft Teams, I think that's another one that has a very powerful socialization feature, because you can put stickers, emoticons, and there's also a notebook for content sharing among the members of the team. And of course, social media is a great thing. Instagram, okay, you can share lots of pictures with short content, okay, short text content. And Flipgrid is another free tool which uses videos for interaction. For cognitive engagement, I use mind maps to get them to come up with interesting ideas. I use Stormboard, which has colorful sticky notes with shapes, different shapes, either square, sometimes a bit hexagonal. Okay. And this can be colored, in different colors. So there's a lot of potential for showing categories and collaborating. So I get my students to go on in groups, okay, which we have assigned, and put me in the group in their Stormboard so that I can see what they are doing. I do a similar thing with Coggle, so to produce a mind map, okay, and it's simple to use, lots of drag and drops involved here, where we can attach graphics so you can see a few. And finally, I'd like to suggest some production and design-based tasks, tools that you can use for this. Okay, let the students design and produce posters, brochures, okay, so that they can be more creative. So Canva is one tool for designing lots of things. Okay, I like the variety of templates that we can get our students to use. Posters, menus, resumes, infographics, okay, many other things that can then be shared on social media. Creating videos can be challenging, okay, but now it's become so easy. Students actually can, just from a script that they have created, okay, they can do PowerPoint recordings and make sure to export these PowerPoints as videos at the end. I'd like to share a simple, very simple text to video tool called Lumen 5. If you go on to lumen5.com and sign up for a free account, you click plus and you can start creating a video. Okay, all you need is the written script. It uses actually elements of artificial intelligence to suggest appropriate graphics and music for the video based on the script that you have entered in. So video making has never been easier. Okay, and there's all sorts of writing and mobile apps for tracing writing, okay, and even for writing with young children as well as teenagers. Okay, tools like Mind Labs and Tunistic 3D can be used to train older children for writing. So tools like this will allow students to be more creative, I feel, and I hope that these tools can be used, and I hope that you will use it and share with all of us, okay, your creative teaching ideas in teaching language online. All the best to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dorothy. Wow. That's many tools that you have shared. What we have here, if I quickly can recall, you mentioned Quizlet, Google Forms, Padlet, Flipgrid, Stormboard, Coggle, Canva, Lumen 5, Mad Labs, and Tunistic 3D. I'm sure the teachers are already on the devices looking at these tools. All the best to them. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can also see on the slides here shared by Encik Hassanul, there's some sharing here that you can explore. Go to the sites, and these are sharing by teachers in Selangor. So please do go and explore more on what has been shared, and please use them creatively in your own settings. So yeah, thank you so much, Encik Hassanul, for sharing these activities with us. Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes, disasters provide opportunities for us to rethink, redesign how we want to approach our children. And in this sense, the pandemic has brought us together. To discover new possibilities, new resources, and most importantly, it is increasing our skill sets and competencies. We have come to the end of the webinar today, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ELTC, Ministry of Education, I would like to express my gratitude to all our guest speakers for sharing their valuable and insightful views in today's webinar on creative pedagogies for online teaching and learning. I would also like to thank Bahagian Sumber Teknologi Pendidikan, BSTP, for their great assistance in organizing this webinar. Thank you very much and God bless everyone.